What's up, Math 8? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 5.1, so we're starting our new chapter today, perfect squares and square roots. You do want to have a calculator for this one, just to get to know what the perfect squares and square roots are, and then I'm going to send you out with an activity to help you memorize those. So we're going to be able to find those perfect squares of perfect squares and their square roots. First thing I want to discuss is what are all these things meaning? A perfect square is when a number with integers as its square roots. This means just a positive or negative whole number. Okay. For example, a perfect square is 9 because the square root of 9 is 3. That just means what times what would give you 9, and that number is 3. Or like negative square root of 16, we would get a negative 4. Okay. Square root is a number that when it's multiplied by itself, it equals that given number. So that's where we see me thinking about these things up here, the square root of 9. What number times itself will give me 9? The answer is 3. Radical sign is this picture right here. It kind of looks like a fancy check mark. This is where the square roots go under, or what this is what contains the square roots, and then the radicand is the number underneath that radical sign. Take time now to pause the video here. Write these things down in your notebook for your notes today, and when you're ready to go on, let's click play. All right, so we're going to take some time and draw some perfect squares. Essentially what you're doing is you're taking all of these and you're squaring them. So 1 squared just means 1 times 1, and that's equal to 1. 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. Go ahead and pause the video here, try the rest of these, and then click play to check your work. All right, here they are. If you want to take a minute and pause this video to finish copying those down or checking them. Otherwise, we're going to start on 11 through 20. These are still going to be considered perfect squares. We're going to go up to 20 here. So again, start by doing 11 times 11. That's 121. Take a moment to pause the video here. Try the rest for 12 through 20. And when you're ready to check it, go ahead and click play. All right, and here are the rest of these perfect squares. Take a minute if you need to pause the video just to finish writing them down or checking your work. Otherwise, we're going to get started with a few questions. The thing we want to remember is whenever we square a number or when we find the square root of a number, so it's supposed to be square root, that radical, those are going to be opposite operations. So squaring a number or finding the square root of a number are going to undo one another. So when we talk about types of square roots, we have positive, negative, and then a combo of positive and negative. The first one is your typical square root. There's nothing in front of it. These are just going to be your normal numbers, and you're going to get positive answers as you start to answer them. Negative square roots will have a negative in the front, and we'll talk about later on why you can't have a negative on the inside. But a negative square root, you would just solve the square root, so the square root of 16 is 4, and then just keep your answer as a negative, or the square root of 25 is equal to negative 5, okay, where that negative is in front. The negative square root of 36, I just chose these because these are easier ones to deal with, and negative 6. You also have something called positive negative, and that's when you see this plus minus sign in front of it, and then a 16, so you would just answer with a positive negative 4, or a plus minus 25 is a positive negative 5, those types of things. Take time now to pause the video, make sure you've got this copied down, and when you're done, click play to go on. All right, so we're going to start here. Find the square roots. Some of them you're going to have 2 possible answers. Use your perfect square list to help you. So let's start with 25. The square root of 25 is 5 because what times itself will give you 25. This next one is a fraction, so you maybe even can think about it as this, the negative square root of 9 on top and then the square root of 16 on the bottom. So you're just going to solve both of those individually. The square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, so I should get negative 3/4. The square root of 100 is equal to 10. The negative square root of 49 is negative 7. Here's some more. Let's go ahead and pause the video now so you can try these on your own. And when you're done, click play to see what you got. All right. When we see these, we're going to just try to figure out what times what would give us 36. And notice we have a plus minus sign in front. So my answer should also have that plus minus sign. So I get plus minus 6. The positive negative square root of 1 is positive negative 1. Up here, again, one of those fraction examples, so just break them up into two separate square roots. The square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 25 is 5. And then this one you might have had to go back to your list for. We would just take the square root of 225, which is going to give us 15. And then the square root of 324, which is 18. But notice that 15 and 18 could be simplified. So if I take 15 and 18 and divide both of those by 3, I'm going to get 5/6 as my final result. The last thing we're going to talk about are estimating square roots. What we're going to do to estimate these is find the two perfect squares, the numbers between, and then see which one it's closer to. That answer is the approximation. So if you think about the square root of 40, the two perfect squares closest to that is 36 and 49. 36 is only 4 away, 49 is 9 away, so the square root of 36 is closer. So the approximation for the square root of 40 would be about 6. Let's try the square root of 12. The square root of 12 is in between the two perfect squares of 9 and 16. 9 is 3 away from 12, 16 is 4 away from 12, so we're going to say that this one is closer. So the square root of 9 is 3, so my approximation would be about 3. And notice I'm using the approximation equivalent sign, not necessarily a true equal sign. The square root of 50 is closest to the square root of 49, and the square root of 64. 50 is closest to 49, so the square root of 50 is approximately 7. The square root of 300, the two perfect squares I'm thinking of, I'm thinking maybe 16, I know 16 squared is 256, 17 squared is 289, so we're probably going to stick with the square root of 289, and then 18 squared is 324. So the one that's closest to that, 324 is only 24 away from 300, but 289 is only 11 away. So this one is going to win and get to be the closest. So 300 is approximately 17. And then 250, we've got 225 and roughly 256, I believe, with that 16 squared. I'm just checking my list I have. 250 is closest to 256, which is 16, so approximately 16. Okay, I'm going to have you try this last one, these last four on your own. So if you haven't already, pause the video, try these to see which one is closest, and when you're done, click play. All right, the square root of 120 is between 144, which is 12 times 12, and actually no, 121 and 10. Or 100. The square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of 121 is 11, and since 121 is closest to 120, we're going to say my approximation is 11. The square root of 3 is in between the two perfect squares of 1 and 4. The square root of 4 is closest to the square root of 3, so we're going to approximate that as about 2. The square root of 5 is also between two of the similar ones. We have square root of 4 and the square root of 9. 5 is closest to 4, so we're also going to say the square root of 5 is about 2. And then 170, I'm thinking maybe 14 squared would be 196. And then 13 squared is 169. And because 170 is closest to 169, we're just going to take that 169 square root, which would be approximately 13. That's all we have for today for lesson 5.1. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up.